Okay, so here we are in step 6 of this project. We're just going to render. Quick question for the YouTube community on this. I've got a green screen here, and it works out well because our particles are bouncing off of our green background and colliding with the name. Exporting an object that doesn't have anything behind it and creating transparency or an alpha channel is something that I'm not positive about in the Blender. I read up on it a little bit, and I don't know whether 2.63 makes that easy or not. If anyone's had any success rendering with transparency, please let me know, because I'd be interested in knowing whether or not that's easy enough here in the Blender. I've done a little reading, and I'll continue to look into it, but at this point I'm just not sure. Anyway, so we've got our green background in our title. So here's what we're going to do. Now, these directions are very class specific. If you've rendered an animation in Blender before, you probably don't need to watch this. But if you're in my class, you want to watch this, because I'm going to be very specific about where to put things and how to make sure you get it done right. So I'm going to click on the camera up here, and that's going to give me my rendering options. And you want to make sure your start range and your end frame are about 600. 1 to 600, all right? And down here at the bottom, you can see our actual animation is also 600 frames, okay? Down at the bottom, we're going to render this as a PNG, okay? And I'm going to click the folder here to tell it where to put the pictures. This is important. Network drives in my class, students, Beck classes, first quarter, Blender title, first period, or whatever period you're in, your name, and what we're going to do is we'll just use the create new directory function here, all right? And I'm going to create a new folder, and we're going to call it render. So in your project directory, you should have a folder called render, and leave the second field here blank. Blender will sequentially number these images, and we're going to need that sequential numbering when we use Premiere later, okay? So I've got my location of the render set. I've got my duration set. It's going to render 600 frames. And this is a good point here. You don't have to render this all in one shot. If you render 70 images and the bell rings, you can stop. And when you come in the next day, you can tell it to start where you left off and continue. So you can render this in segments. You can render for 2 minutes, walk away, come back, render for another 4, and eventually you will get all of your frames rendered out. So that start frame and end frame are pretty useful if the bell rings and you got to go. Okay? All right, so we're ready to go, and we just click the animation button here, and it's going to go through, and it's going to begin to push out frames, and you can see where you're at here. All right? Frame 3, frame 4, and if you go into that render folder, you can see these things start to sort of show up, and eventually we'll see the particles trickle down, and we'll have 600 pictures in your folder when you're done that we'll be able to take into Adobe Premiere, and we'll be able to combine that with After Effects. So that's it for rendering, and once you've got your 600 pictures in your folder, you can turn off the computer, reboot, and choose Windows, because we'll be on Windows for the next part of this. Thanks for watching.